First off, so we have a manufacturer who plan to sell the product at $59.99 and the unit variable costs are $18.89 and total fixed costs assigned to the product are $98,640. How many units must it be sold to get a break-even point? Now, first, if we look at our previous formula, we know that our break-even volume is equals to fixed costs divided by contribution per unit. So in here, we can find out what is our unit contribution. So unit contribution, so that's going to be price per unit minus variable cost per unit. So that's going to be equals to $59.99 minus $18.89. So that's going to be equals to 41.10 cents. And our break even is equals to 98,640 divided by 41.10 cents. So that's going to be equals to approximately 2,400 units. And our break even dollars, if you want to calculate that, so it will be 2,400 times $59.99. So that's going to be equals to approximately 143,976. Okay. Now the question just asks you about this, but I'm just doing this as an extra. So I'm just going to write that extra. Okay, so that's the first one on break even. Very relatively straightforward. Again, the second one, suppose your company manufactures candy bars. Fixed cost associated with the product is $250,000. Variable cost per unit is 30 cents. Selling price is $1. What is the break-even volume? Okay, so pretty much the same as the previous. So we can calculate the contribution per unit again. So contribution per unit or per candy bars, I would say. So I'm just gonna skip through to the straight away the calculation. So that's gonna be $1 minus 30 cents. So the contribution is 70 cents, and the break even volume, that's gonna be 250,000 divided by 0.7t. So that's gonna be 357,143 candy bars. That's how much you need to make a break-even point. So suppose the candy bar company could use celebrity endorsement on the commercial for next year for a one-time cost of $100K. So this will increase fixed cost to $350,000. So how many candy bars? So the question is more that we need to actually sell. Well, now our break-even point. So that's going to be, instead of 250, now is 350 divided by 70. So this is 500,000 candy bars. So because of that, the break-even volume, it's going to be 500 minus 375,143. So that's approximately equals to 142,857 candy bars. So that's pretty much how would you calculate a break-even analysis. Now last one. Right, so the question is, suppose a company that owns the right to Sesame Street character wanted 0.15, so 15 cents from the sale of each candy bar instead of the 100,000 one-time cost. What impact will this have on the BEV? Well, if you think about it now, instead of having the fixed cost, because it's one-time cost, now they wanted to have a variable cost. So because of that, my unit contribution will change. So because the candy bar, it's sell at $1. Okay, so, and there is a variable cost initial of 30 cents from the previous questions. Now there will be extra 0.15 because of you have to pay for the right to use that characters. So if you do that, so this will become 0.55. So my unit contribution changed to 0.55 or 55 cents. And my break even point will be equals to 250 divided by 0.55. And that is going to be approximately 454,546 candy bar. So if you think about it, which one is better? So is it better to have the fixed cost or better to use this one? So if you look at here, our break-even point is a lot more if we have to do this part where you pay the $100,000 rather than having a 0.15 on the commission. So you think about it, actually the cut in the margin per unit is a little bit better option in here rather than the increase in the fixed cost in the previous question, because the company will be able to recover fixed costs sooner with the cut in margin. And the more quickly that a company can recover fixed costs, the sooner it starts to make profit, if you remember that particular part. So if you increase a fixed cost, then obviously it takes longer for you to actually earn profit. But if you cut down fixed costs and just take some of the variable costs, it helps you to break even pretty quickly. Okay, so in the last few slides, or in fact, I think this is the last slides, profit-based sales target. So break-even analysis can be extended to find target revenue, as we talk about it. So we can find out if your break-even in this part, what is your target, what's your realistic target, and you also can change. And these numbers do vary because fixed costs and everything will change day by day. So for example, if you have electricity increase, government taxation increase, or so on, so obviously this will have an impact on your BEV, break-even volume. To achieve a profit target, a firm's revenue should cover both the costs as well as the target profit. So if you, what they're saying in here is that if you have a target profit that you have in mind, then you do need to take into account that into the fixed costs so that at least you can sort of target how much that you want. Right? So this is not going to be a break even anymore. So this is more about the target that you want to reach. And most likely you want to reach a target that has a profit in there, because or else why you are in the business, isn't it? So that's what this calculation is showing. So they're asking you, can you calculate the price that you have to charge to achieve a target profit if you know the number of units that you can sell? Well, the answer, it depends. So it depends on what the values that you have. So for example, before we want to find out the profit, we do need to know about the costs associated to make the product. So you need to know the cost first, then you can calculate the profit target. As you know, you can see that in here, if you want to calculate any of the target points, you do need to find out what are the costs. So there are fixed costs and the variable cost that is part of your contribution. Okay, so that's going to be the last slides of this one. So I'm just going to go through what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of a break-even analysis. So the advantage is very simplistic and it is very easy to understand, very easy to utilize. The break-even pricing and target pricing strategy, it helps you to set up what is your target point. So for example, if your break-even point is 10 units, so obviously you need to try your best to produce 10 units because that is going to be the difference between you are making money versus you are not making money. And lastly, you can sort of help you to find out what is your target sales volume, target sales revenue, and so on. But there are obviously some limitation. So for example, simplistic fixed and variable cost assumption. So it means that you don't really change the price throughout, because if you change any of the fixed and variable costs, then definitely you will change the break-even analysis. So not sure whether it actually works. So the next one is that the non-linear pricing. So what does it mean by that? So obviously, if the best case of this will be our taxation system, where we are using a progressive taxation system. So it means that as you produce more, you're making more money, then you'll be charged at a different tax rate. So that's what we call a non-linear pricing. So if you're producing a lot more, then obviously the non-linear pricing starts to kick in. Then you can't really capture the non-linear part of it. And lastly, how would you incorporate the economies of scale? So if you don't know what does it mean by economies of scale is the benefit of large production. So if you have a large scale production, so for example, like manufacturer, oftentimes that the first part of it, sometimes they're still testing their ground, testing the waters and so on. But at the end of the day, after the company is up and running, they normally are pretty good, because when you do a specialized thing day by day, you're better at it, and you will achieve what we call the economies of scale, where the cost will be decreased as you go along in time. So as you go to the next time period or the coming time period, then you'll be better at it. Okay, so it's sort of very similar to the non-linear sort of side of it, but in here it's saying that you are getting better and better, and obviously the cost is reduced and reduced, and that will not be captured in our break-even analysis, because the break-even analysis only assume fixed and variable costs. So that's all for this week's lecture. If you have any question, feel free to drop me a line, or else I will see you next week for another video. Stay tuned.